Hey there, welcome to Gals Get Real, where real women, real stories, and real talk come together. I'm Megan.
I'm Kristen. Between us, we have 9 adult children with 6 daughters. Let's open up the conversations we never had with our moms and flip the script with the kind of connections we want with each other and our daughters.
We're here to laugh, cry, and dive into all the things, from everyday shifts to the curveballs and life pivots, and the messy, magical moments that make us who we are.
Today, we are lucky enough to have 2 more of our daughters here with us. Not so long ago, we had our youngest girls on, the babies of the gang, who are within about a year's age of one another, give or take. Our girls today don't have birth order or age as much in common, but they have some other similarities that I think we're going to find so interesting. Why don't we let you guys introduce yourselves? Caitlyn, you want to go?
My name is Caitlyn. I'm Kristen's daughter. I'm 23. And I'm the second oldest of 4 children. So I have an older sister, a younger brother, and a younger sister.
Awesome. And Madeleine?
Hi, my name is Madeleine. I am 28. I am Megan's oldest child. I have 2 younger sisters and 2 younger brothers. I am the oldest of 5.
Fantastic.
Awesome. So I will say that I think these 2 girls are extremely empathetic human beings. They both work or want to work in an environment where they are helping people and just doing some good in the world. So I think that they would be considered empaths, which I don't really know exactly what that means. So I looked it up, and it basically is highly sensitive people who pick up emotional energy around them, which sounds really cool.
No, I love that. I would consider both of you energetic and all the layers that involves. So let's go.
Let's do this. Okay. So my first question is, do you guys think empathy is something that you are born with, or is it shaped by experiences? Whoever wants to go first, go for it.
Jump in full throttle with your energy.
I guess I can start. I feel that it's both, but I think it's more what you're born with. I do think that experiences growing up and just throughout life can help strengthen that or allow you to feel more connected with that part of yourself. But in my own experience, I feel like it was something that has been there my entire life.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think there's probably elements of both. I think different experiences, just in the line of work with human services that I've been in, there's definitely people that their experiences have shaped their interest and desire to be in the human services space or to be in a world that does give back. And so I do think that that's part of it, but I also 100% agree. I think that your sensitivity and intuition and mindfulness of other people and the kind of awareness that you have when you are being, for me, it's kind of overly sensitive and overly empathetic at times. And that leads to overthinking and a whole slew of other things. But I definitely think it's a part of who I am and has always been a part of who I am. So I think it's definitely something that I think is nuanced, but I do think that you're born with it or you're not.
Yeah, nuanced is a good word. And I would say it makes up your personality, or at least it's part of one of those traits that helps define who you are as a person.
Right. And I would second that emotion. I think you've always had that. So I think outer influences and experiences can definitely help heighten certain things. But in general, I would agree. You've always sort of had that super special, very empathetic side to you.
I feel like I just relate it to feeling your emotions deeply as well. I saw something on TikTok. It was a video of my sister. She is just a deep feeler in every capacity and had a really good plate of steak in front of her and cried about how good it looks and how good it was about to taste. So it's just it's kind of just everything is a little bit more, I don't want to say dramatized, but I feel more attached to many things based on that like deep emotional feeling.
No, absolutely. I totally agree. And I think there's many things that are parts of life that are just their next steps, their decisions, their people would say they're like normal and natural progression. And for me, it's like the weight that certain things carry, things definitely feel a lot heavier. even if it's a good, a really exciting, awesome, happy moment, I think things just feel a little bit heavier and a little bit deeper sometimes. And yeah, I think that's something that I definitely can relate to and connect with, just kind of the experience of being a human being, and some of the emotions that come with that are complicated and complex. And there's a lot of different ways that, people internalize and process those. And I think for me, it's definitely a little bit heavier.
Yeah, I like the word like weighing. Like it weighs a little bit more. Yeah, for sure.
Well, Madeleine, that definitely is a great segue into my next question. But I just want to say first, when you talk about things weighing and being really receptive, I would often, when Caitlyn was a young girl, I mean, I'm talking maybe toddler and just a little bit older than that, I would say, have you been here before? Like she seemed wiser than her years. Did you ever feel like you connected with people at an early age, with adults or even people your age? Did you have any sensibilities along those lines?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. I think for me, it was really like navigating and figuring out that my emotional responses to things were not a problem, and were not something that were, they're not dramatic and they're not extra. And it's just kind of figuring out how to channel it and work with it. I think being the oldest in my family and the oldest cousin, I never really was around older people in terms of like older siblings and older cousins. So I don't necessarily feel like I was the most intuitive of people. It's taken me a long time to work through my emotional kind of responses and intelligence, and to get to the place that I am at now, and being very confident and content where that is at. So yeah, I think it's definitely been like a maturing process for me. If it sounds like Caitlyn was much more mature, I was definitely, and still am, kind of working on all of that.
I don't know if mature is necessarily the right word, but
I'm not sure it is either. No.
Mom, I've told you this lyric before. I believe it's in a Luke Bryan song called Most People Are Good. I could be mixing that up.
I
but
love that song. Yes.
There's a line that's like, wisdom in your youth would be a lot less fun. And I relate it to like, I feel like my ability to like relate to people, to empathize with people, to understand people and feel really deeply is my best and worst quality. And to segue into the maturity comment or word kind of that you said, Madeleine, I feel like I did have like a heightened intuition and wisdom growing up, to the point where it made me hyper aware of things and hyper observant, and figuring out like, when am I being too sensitive to others' emotions around me, and when can I utilize this quality to the best of my ability? So I admire you for doing the work to get to that point with understanding your emotional response to things and your emotional intelligence. I admire it and I envy it a little bit. I eventually will get there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But
no, I totally
dealing
am
with like thinking your emotional responses are too much is like a work in progress,
right.
For sure.
Absolutely. And I think that societally, people say that. Like people say that women overreact and have strong reactions and responses and all these hormonal changes that are constantly going on in our bodies. Like there's a real unlearning of that, and processing the fact that it's okay if friends or people around you aren't responding in that way and you are. That's okay. And for me, it was my sister. We're 14 months apart. She's Carrie's age. And we're really, really, really close. And we have been for a while. And she's just someone who is very even keeled and very, nothing really, shakes her out of that very level headed place. And so I would compare myself and constantly feel like it was something that was wrong with me, or something that I needed to work through and change and deal with. And it is what it is. And
we're all different.
I can't necessarily.
Right. It's not better or worse. It's just different.
And I mean, you
have
can't change it. So you need to kind of course, you need to figure out how to, manage emotions and all of that. But I think for me, it was just accepting that that's a part of how both of us seem to be. And that's okay. Like, I think it's a strength in a lot of ways, and also can totally relate to, having its downfalls at times. Also, I can definitely relate to that. But no, I think it's just accepting us as individuals for kind of how we view the world, because it might last forever. So I can't necessarily.
Oh my gosh. Right. Exactly. And thank you for bringing in birth order too, because it's so interesting, that whole process of accepting who you are, but then also how all these young relationships, including siblings and friends, of course, too, mold that. And you just answered my question. I mean, I don't even need to ask it. I was going to ask, has being highly empathetic ever made things harder? Which you've answered, both easier, harder, and just neutral, probably too. It's just accepting that this is the way you see the world and who you are. But work, school, as you grew up and you got more into your sports or into your academics, what have you, is there anything that stands out as being a particularly challenging time because you were more wired this way? Or maybe it's a celebration, a time when it actually leaped you forward and allowed you to do things a little bit more easily? Anybody have any examples?
This is less from growing up and more kind of current, but I am in my late 20s and I have all four of my grandparents, which is something that I'm very grateful for and I really appreciate. I think it's great to be a deep, emotional, empathetic person. I also think that sometimes with the realities of aging and with life and the way that life progresses and kind of goes on, it definitely comes with its challenges. So for me, I always try to spend as much one-on-one quality time with my grandparents as I can. I really value it. I will commit to going somewhere a few days before or staying a few days after to spend that extra quality time. But I come home to my fiance after and I'm a ball of emotions and I'm kind of working through the fact that my grandparents are aging and my grandmas are both really struggling and they have a lot going on right now. And I think that they both are unfortunately not the same people that my parents grew up with and that I kind of grew up with. And so it's just, I come home with my fiance and I'm processing all my emotions and it's a lot. And so I think that having the piece of myself that is going to continue to do that and put myself in those situations, I also need to be okay with the fact that when I get home and when I decompress and when I come down from kind of the high of the quality time that I really do enjoy and that I cherish, a lot of those emotions are going to be kind of more difficult to process. So I think that, yeah, that's the first example that comes to mind for me.
It's like an emotional hangover you get from doing that. I definitely relate to that, like in the same sense of wanting to connect more and spend more time with my grandparents. And it ties into how I was going to answer this question before I heard you speak, Madeleine, but it's kind of a perfect connection point just in my brain right now, because I feel like I didn't really understand this side of myself until I got to college or just kind of have experienced young adulthood that's been really difficult. So learning how to, like, I experienced issues with it, hardships with it growing up. And I was always super, super defensive, no matter what. Like, even if people were making jokes, like simply joking to me, I was an easy target because I was super defensive. And I couldn't get why people would just pick on people, even if it was like lighthearted fun. So it was there when I was younger, but I didn't know it. Like, I wasn't at a point where I really was able to understand it. So becoming older and getting to a point of being able to understand it, I'm trying to utilize it, and maybe not utilize it is the right word, but yeah, like be able to move through life knowing how to like use it to my advantage. And when you go and hang out with your grandparents, knowing too that like you might need some time to decompress after, because it is this emotional high, but you're also connected to the fact that you're not going to have them forever. So it's giving yourself that space to kind of come down and process all those emotions. So, Mom, to answer your question, everything. And I could probably allude to any point in my life where it was either hard or triumphant for me in this like characteristic of mine.
It's like something interesting to always have a tug of war with, I suppose, just given any season or stage of life. I love, Megan, I love that these two have both brought up their grandparents, because I can tell you right now, your grandparents being from their generation and maybe not having quite as many distractions, which we can get to in a little bit here, they certainly appreciate that kind of energy and that empathy.
Oh, they are so grateful every time you're with them. And I do really think it's a special relationship. I think if you can share sort of like emotions, stories through generations, I think it does just ultimately make you just a more interesting, better, well-rounded person, right?
Yeah.
Grandparents are special people.
Mm-hmm.
I 100% agree. And I've been just chatting more on the phone with my grandmother, my mom's mom. And I try and call my grandparents more now. But just through getting close with her, like she and I are really similar. And, you know, I want to join the Peace Corps. And she said her whole life she wanted to join the Peace Corps. And it's just cool when you find out similarities or differences. Or like I found out my grandfather was like super artistic and like acted in plays. And I was like, what? So totally important to be spending time with the older generations, learning, sharing stories, sharing emotions. Exactly what you're saying,
Yeah.
Megan.
No, for
Yeah,
sure.
I totally agree. So this leads me to, I know it's not so easy necessarily being in your 20s, sort of in this day and age. How do you guys think social media potentially affects how people like you or people who take things more to heart and are more sensitive, feel emotions more deeply? How do you think that impacts you guys or similar super empathetic people today in your 20s?
Gosh, I don't really know how to answer this question because I feel like I would do a better job at answering how it's affected everyone and Gen Z
that then, yeah,
overall.
just answer. Perfect. That's even
Yeah, because
better.
I can tell you she's a big TikToker and a big reality
No,
TV
I'm
girl.
not. I like reality
Me
TV
too.
and
Me too. It's
sometimes I
okay.
like
So do I.
TikTok, but
It's great.
I don't know. Madeline, do you think it's affected, I guess, people with traits more similar to us in a more unique way? Or
Yeah, I think it is. It is such a hard question because it is such a massive like part of our society and the way that kids are. I work at an elementary school now, and I just, I see it with regards to just like how people are now, kids that are growing up now. It's such an automatic, they have access to it and they know how to use it. And it's like, it is a little bit different for someone like me or someone older, as our parents, grandparents who had to kind of watch over time as it became more and more prominent and then kind of ebb and flow with that. I think for me, just specifically in the job space, you were saying about the Peace Corps, and I worked at a shelter for a long time. And I think with job stuff in particular, I find like LinkedIn and different social media platforms where I see people at different points in their career. I think it's really hard not to compare where I am at now and where other people are at. I think I struggle with that. I'm sure other people, do.
I just don't look at LinkedIn.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's something that I avoid at all costs. I moved to Chicago about like 9 months ago with a new job. And so before, of course, my sister's like, you have to go on LinkedIn. You have to, apply to jobs on LinkedIn. This is the way that people do it now. And I was very anti. So I do try to stay off it as much as possible. But yeah, I think if you're an intuitive, thoughtful person who is processing the fact that all these other people that are doing these different things, and it's easy to feel like you're behind or you're not where you should be, or you're comparing yourself, even though everyone is on their own timeline and has their own path, and no one is behind and no one is ahead. It's just where you're at. And it's important to know that about yourself and your journey. I think for me, I think I struggle with definitely comparing myself to where other people are at in their careers in particular. So
For sure.
Yeah.
I love that. That was great.
I think
Great
the
answer.
comparison thing is huge and it affects everyone, obviously. But when you are taking a more unconventional path, like compared to the peers in our country, at least, or just what we've seen around us and whatnot, it's extra easy to compare. I also feel like I get very enthralled and involved with stories. So like reading a book or watching a movie or watching a TV show, I have a really hard time saying goodbye to things when they end. And I think that relates to all the things that we've been talking about that you and I share. And that can have its problems on TikTok too, and on different social media platforms where I, just like anyone, can get in a rabbit hole of scrolling and whatnot. But I get so like involved in certain stories, or I almost like disassociate too much from my life. So that exists regardless of social media, but I think is definitely heightened with social media.
Yeah, I think just like access. Like I think just the fact that you have access to that, like you would X amount of years ago, you would have no idea about that particular story and that particular situation to even disassociate and kind of overthink about it. So I think that even when I'm trying to take a break from social media, like I'm off of Instagram right now, I'm off of Facebook, I've been off Facebook for a while, but I just feel like try to be off of the apps. I still find myself, it's there. Like it's really difficult to separate yourself. I saw this. It's funny. I must talk about it a lot because I've been getting ads for it. But there's this. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but there's this. It's called Brick, and it's basically it's like a locker, and I don't know how it works, if it's a part of the phone or you add it to your phone or whatever. But basically, these guys came together and were just like, people are spending so much time on social media and they're feeling as though they're getting in these rabbit holes and they're overthinking and it's affecting their mood and their mental health and all these things. So they created this little like way to kind of intentionally lock yourself out of these things. And so I'm curious about it. I might look into it more just to see kind of what the deal is with that, because I'm curious about it. I feel like I don't know. I feel like just having a break sometimes and taking a step back for me is healthy, because
I think everyone could use, taking a step back.
Right. And I think there's so many great pieces of connection and being able to, like we're talking about our grandparents, being able to call our grandparents, being able to send our grandparents pictures. Like that's so awesome. And there's so many great elements of connecting and finding people that you can relate to and sharing stories. And like that's such a wonderful part of what social media is. But of course, there are some.
It's like figuring out how to ride that line.
Yes. Yeah. Connecting without necessarily comparing. And that goes for all levels of relationships, right? We'll get to this in a little bit. Do you feel pressure? And maybe we've already touched on this a little bit with LinkedIn, but do you feel that pressure to have it all figured out in your 20s? Or because you value these relationships that are a little bit more simple with different generations and conversations, sharing stories like with your grandparents, does that alleviate some of that pressure of comparison?
I feel super grateful because I have two future sister-in-laws who are very different people and who at very different points in their lives went back to school to get a master's degree. They got married at different times. They had kids at different times. Their trajectories are they're just different. And I think for me, I appreciate that they were on two completely different timelines, and one is not better, one is not worse, one is not behind, one is not, one did not miss something. It's just the way that it worked out for them, and things happen for a reason. And so I really try to not find myself being too stuck and I should be here or I should be there. I think it's, like I mentioned, very difficult not to sometimes when you're looking at what other people are doing. But I do try to remind myself that they both where they need to be. And I appreciate that
and everyone has a different path.
Yeah, and I appreciate that they took different roads to get there, but they're both where they should be, and they're just really happy with where they're at. It's just different ways of getting there.
Right, exactly. And Caitlyn, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I feel like I'm at a point where I no longer feel like I need to have it all figured out in my 20s. Like I view this decade as a decade for experience and exposure and making mistakes. And I don't know if I can swear out here, but like doing things that otherwise you'd be like, what? Like this is the time for all of the messiness. But I think like that wasn't a realization I had until really the last year or two. I feel like my whole life and young adulthood, I felt like I needed to have it figured out. I don't know. I feel like society teaches you that. It's like the age of 30 is so, and I love the show Friends for that reason, because they're showing people who don't have careers at the age of 30 living together in New York City. And 10 seasons later, they're kind of moving on and whatnot. But like, I think that everyone will just be better and enjoy their lives more if they don't feel that pressure to have it all figured out in their 20s.
Yeah, I think you are 100% right. So I'm happy that you both have gotten to that place. That's pretty amazing. So one more question. I know that we talk about generations, we talk about improving conversations and relationships with our daughters across generations. So, what do you wish women in their 40s to 60s, let's say, because I think the grandparents get you guys, but what do you wish we between 40 and 60, what do you wish we understood about being in your 20s today? Because it's really so different than when we were in our 20s. So do you ever feel sort of frustrations or that we don't get it or we don't understand it? Because it would be helpful for us, and I think other moms out there, to understand really where your frustrations lie or just what you wish we had a better understanding of. Sorry, that was very long-winded.
No, I think that this is
a question.
Definitely
an
long-winded.
interesting question. I'm assuming everyone here knows Mel Robbins or has heard of her, but she's like motivational speaker, podcaster, whatever. And she's had this huge push to talk about how hard it is in your 20s, especially now. So I would say to go listen to her episode on what you should know in your 20s, because she says, send it to your parents, send it to your siblings, all the things. So short answer, I would say, is we just need grace in every aspect. And like all the things that someone from the outside might worry about a person in their 20s or might hope or expect for a person in their 20s, or recognize the things that they need to change. Like that person knows it. And that person is like having a hard time, like not being able to better those aspects of their life. We kind of know everything that people outside of this decade want for us or hope for us to achieve and the changes we need to make and whatnot. So just kind of a huge, huge margin of grace.
I love grace. And I'll tell you a topic for another episode, but I have heard the senior population, your grandmother specifically, Caitlyn, say the same thing. Like if people don't know that we old people, if people don't think we're aware of our failings and what we don't remember anymore or what we can't do, we're way more in tune with it than anybody could imagine. Right. So it's just offering grace.
That's why I love Mel Robbins, because this is like exactly what she talks about. Like,
right. And I think it's hard. It's hard in this day and age to be in your 20s. I think it's on a lot of levels much harder than when we were kids. So we want to give you that grace, or not kids, but in our 20s. We want to give you that grace and we want to be sensitive to it because I think it's tough out there.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome that there's such a push in our society now for open conversations about mental health and like being more aware and mindful of that. I think that our world is a work in progress and there's a lot of things that society still struggles with, but I think that that's really great. I think that people are much more mindful and aware about just different like types of people. And I think that doesn't really answer like the 20s question, but I just think that society as a whole is like moving in the direction of just really appreciating and respecting and understanding that.
More open-mindedness too.
Well, and I would agree that that's one of the great things in your generation. I think that that's for some of the not so great things, I think that acknowledging that and being more accepting and understanding is really an amazing thing that your generation has done and embraced and accepted.
Yeah, no, for sure. I see it even with my siblings that are in college. I've been out of college for however many years. And just for older people, like to answer your question, just to try to understand and really put yourself in that person's situation. It's really important. I think that people need to give themselves more grace and more time and more kindness. And one of the biggest things that I practice a lot in yoga is just like really being a friend to yourself. It's so much easier to be friends,
Oh, I love that. That's so great.
Well, yeah. And sharing those open conversations and those stories for greater awareness when it comes to challenges and issues, right? But then also to share celebration. And I just want to say on that note, Madeleine, I want to congratulate you on your engagement.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
And I just want to say, I know proposals today, another topic for another time, I suppose, but can be really super special and something that's really nice to share over social media, etc. I'm sure there's lots of emotions with different situations and families. And I just want to say thank you for sharing yours with me. I wasn't there, but it was wonderful to be a part of it. And I just thought I would ask you as my final question to you, what mattered most to you with yours, especially in the context, again, of all these proposals that we do luckily get to be a part of through the sharing on social. What really mattered to you?
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I think for me, both of us are very close to our families. My fiance is the youngest of 4 kids and is very close to his parents.
Wait, I have to give a shout out to Cam. Sorry to interrupt you, but he is the most amazing, wonderful, incredible. We love you, Cam. No, he
we
really
love
is.
You, Cam.
He's like the yin to
Go
her
Cam.
yang. Go Cam. We love Cam. Okay,
No,
sorry,
okay.
Madeleine, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we're both very close to our families. And I think that just how thoughtful it was is really what I will remember. My sisters were super involved.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
That's
I know,
so
he's
sweet.
amazing.
And knowing
I was talking to my dad. I was like, I don't know when I put him on my emergency contact form because I'm like, that will never happen. Like, it will always be you, Dad. Sorry, you're going to be my emergency contact. Like, I don't know when you.
and I think
Oh my
that's
gosh,
okay.
that's so
I don't know when you start to
Like,
put
honestly,
someone else on. I just like, and my boyfriend's like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. I don't need to be your emergency contact. It's fine.
Yeah.
And I also think that we need to have a whole nother episode in terms of
clearly
this
that's a hot
interesting
topic. And we love that. I mean, who doesn't, no matter your age?
Okay, so on that note, we always end a podcast with a question. So your mom's going to ask you, Caitlyn, and then I'm going to ask you one, Madeleine.
Yeah. And because you guys have given so many words of wisdom, maybe just like 1 or 2 lines, just quick answers. What piece of advice?
She said, you guys talk too
she
much.
said. She was like, shut up.
Just come from an open-minded mindset and for yourself and for others. I think that judgment is a killer. I find myself judging less and I find myself moving through the world with more joy and whatnot.
Well, you're doing great with it.
Oh, I love that. I have goosebumps.
You're doing great with it.
Now your turn,
Oh,
Madeleine and
I have to also answer this
Macarena.
one?
Well, would you like to answer that one or a
I
different
thought
one?
that you were going to. Okay, sorry. I thought that you were going to. I thought it was like.
Okay, wait, cut. We'll just cut it. I'll turn to you. Okay, we're going to start
don't
over.
need, like,
and
in
Madeleine.
the future, I feel like that's not something that necessarily even needs to be cut. I feel like that's kind of funny, but
Okay, well, she thinks it's funny, so we're not going to
now.
cut it. We're going to move on. This is the real banter that happens behind the scenes. Okay, so Madeleine, my question to you is, when was your most recent what the F moment? Or what the actual F?
I had one of these recently. I have a 4-month-old rescue puppy and I was walking her. She was going crazy. And we went up to this group of people and this one person was like, oh, she's so cute. And she asked to pick her up. And before I could really respond, she was picking her up. And I was like,
What?
This is crazy. Like, I would never pick up someone's dog.
Final words of wisdom. We knew you guys would get along. This has been so fun.
I feel like you're going to be new best friends.
I love that both of our answers were long.
We know that there are literally a million podcasts out there, and so many of them are so, so good. We'd love for you to tell your friends, daughters, and all the women in your life to tune in, get real, and share all the things.
Yes, share your stories with us by DMing and following us on Instagram at Gals Get Real Pod. And please subscribe, like, and share wherever you get your podcasts.
Until next time, lots of love.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.